And we are live. Welcome to my very first live stream tutorial. My name is Chris Welton with CweltonDesign, and I'm really excited to go over Substance finally with Lumion. First, we're going to talk about what Substance is. So, this is Substance. Substance is a couple softwares made by Allegorithmic. They are kind of the premier texturing software makers for the video game industry especially. There's some incredible images on here. Their main softwares, one is Substance Painter. And Substance Painter is, as it says, a 3D painting software. I've used it before. It's really fun. These things are they're pretty in-depth, and they require models that have been all UVs set up. Like SketchUp models don't really work out unless you do some things in Max. But it basically lets you go in and paint with some really advanced tools. It's kind of like 3D Photoshop, and then it gives you all the maps you need to plug in. I've done it with Lumion before. Maybe I'll be doing a tutorial on that later. The other really important software they have is Substance Designer. Now this is where they create materials from scratch. And it's kind of complicated to explain, but basically, as shown right here, all of these nodes, it's basically they're able to create materials complete scratch, not even starting with an image most of the time. And they're able to, because of this, they're able to create substances which can be manipulated before they're even exported as images for like us in Lumion or other rendering softwares. And so when I first got into Substance, I started playing around with Painter and Designer. I just a little bit had gotten into, and I was always thinking, man, I've seen the power this has, but I wish I could just, at the time, they didn't have a way to just download and use the ones that like the pros have made. When I was at Autodesk University last year, I talked to Substance. They had a booth there, and they mentioned to me they had just rolled out an exciting new content library called Substance Source. And that is really where everything changed for me. And hopefully for some of you guys, that I can share this incredible library. And the idea is now they're showcasing some of their best users' work in a library for architects, because they said a lot of architects and visual ArchViz people wanted to get into this, but it'd been a little too complicated for them, and it was a lot more of a video game workflow in a way. And so they made this library for architects. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump to Substance Source and show this off right now. So this is kind of the part 2. We're going to talk about what Substance Source is. So it's a library here of substances, and there are over 1,000 now. It's constantly growing, and they are incredible. So I'm going to show a couple examples here. This is what I really love about it. And there's some free ones here that you guys can get and actually play with after this tutorial, or even during if you would like. So let's take a look. They have it sorted for us by ground. So I'm logged in, and I have everyone's I've downloaded before. Under my assets all show up here. These are all the substances I have downloaded. With the subscription I have right now, there was a deal for about $10 a month to get all of the software, and I should double check. I believe it's 15 downloads a month, or maybe more. And so right now I have 34 points, which means 34 substances I can still download. It keeps growing over time, and so it doesn't double charge you if you've downloaded them before. And I can go through and even organize the ones I've had to all the fabrics I've downloaded. So let's take a look at kind of their amazing preview they give us. I was jumping the ground. Let's try metal. Their metals are incredible. All sorts of different ones you could think of, and I keep adding more. Let's take a look at this antique bronze darkened. It's one of my favorite ones so far. It's pretty new. So you click on it, and it gives us an iRay rendering here with a couple different ways of viewing it, really up close. And then you go to this next little tab, and it shows the base color, which is the same thing as the diffuse like we would use. normal, roughness, and the maps that kind of come with it. It can give us a really good idea once we've been playing with this more, kind of how it's going to look for us. And it even has different presets. And this is kind of the real strength of Substance that I will show you soon. How we can manipulate these. It's not just an image. It's not downloading it and getting this image right off the bat like another site. Like if you go to any other really professional textured website, if you go like Polygon or Arrowway, you pay for this material and they just give you a download with a diffuse, a bump, or normal, glossiness maps, etc. This one's a little tricky, a little different, but it's different in a very good way. It's an extra step, but I will show you how amazing that extra step is. So we could take a look at another example here before we go on. Let's look at wood. Their woods are incredible. So we take a look at something like, let's get this kind of grungy look here. Rifle stock. You can see those little imperfections in that up close image there. See, that adds a lot of realism to our renderings. You gotta be careful with it because, you know, architects don't always want to see, your clients don't always want to see their building look old and decrepit already, but just that little subtlety we'll get into in these future tutorials. That's what I really love. It really makes these stand out versus just traditional perfectly clean images we often get. Oh, and I forgot to mention, besides this, one of the coolest things is there's a view in 3D here. And it'll give us a little preview render ball here that we can go around and really see how light is affecting this material. And I can tell you, I can get that almost exactly into Lumion looking like that. So this is almost like a free little Lumion preview. Let's try a different one. This is kind of a rougher one. There's all sorts of different substances on here. And there are some video game textures, which, you know, we'll probably never use. Some pretty awesome sci-fi wall panels and weird zombie bone materials. But for the most part, a lot of this library is really kind of geared toward us who are using this for architecture. Let's just go through one more example. One of these really cool looking marbles. So again, there's different maps, what it's going to look like. And we really kind of see how these different maps, how it's affected by light. And this is what I love. I mean, I really get an idea what I'm downloading already. So, there's a specific one I wanted to look at as well. It's one of my favorite ones I've been playing with a lot. And I'll explain why it's so powerful. You'll see soon. It's this mud one. I really like when it's broken up and has that reflectivity as well as kind of a drier part where it doesn't reflect. That really kind of shows off the strength. View it in 3D, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we download these. So that's what we're going to get. So if I want to download this, there's just a little download button right there. I'm sure you guys were looking at the whole time. We're like, it just download already. Alright, and it's pretty cool is some of these, not all of them, I believe there's a couple different authors. This one says here, author Allegorithmic, so it's them themselves making them, and they make some of the best ones, and they have some really high premium users in here as well, you might see. But I know for a fact that the algorithmic ones have a lot of controls we'll have once we download it, and I will explain that very soon. But we would download it by clicking on here, and what it's going to give us is it's called a substance archive, or it's actually .sbsar. I used to call it SPAR, then I realized there's an extra S there, so I guess now I'm just calling that a substance archive. So this is what we'll download. It's called Mud Wet Steps Marks. So we'll have that, and there's also here I want to explain that's an SBS. That's the actual substance, as in we'll actually see the graph and of how they actually built it, and we can manipulate the very source, which I don't know how to do yet, but it's really nice that they have that. So if we had a material that we really liked and we wanted to either kind of reverse engineer or just understand it or manipulate, if we knew what we were doing, we could really manipulate it to something else. That's a huge help. Otherwise, we get the final product with this SBSAR substance archive file. Sorry, it's such a weird name. So the next thing is I'm going to introduce another software that we can get for free in order to view this. everyone can go to this site right now, go to software, go to Substance Player. Now Substance Player is completely free, and this is the interface you kind of get. This is how we open substances, and you can see it. Look at all those sliders. This is a crazy example. This is how we manipulate the substance before we finally export it. So really, when you download one substance, you could essentially get 50, 100, almost infinite different varieties of some of these substances, depending on how many values they have, how many different things they give us. So I will put this, make sure to put this link in the description when at the end of this. If not, it's just Allegorithmic, and I showed you software, Substance Player. So you go to download Substance Player, and I think it's going to make you make an account. You don't have to spend any money, but you make an account. I think you have to, and you just go to Windows download, I'm assuming. And yeah, so it made me do it on here, and I already have it open down here. It's this little green triangle. Like, let's show it in the viewer. So here it's showing up in the folder. I'm just going to open it up, and now I'm going to introduce to you Substance Player, and this is where the fun actually really happens. So we get in this window, we have a really cool interactive 3D object, which we can change here. It's a rounded cube. It could just be a flat cube. Could be a sphere, although I would adjust, there's a way we can adjust the tiling, because that's a little stretched a bit too much. And we could even load our own object in here, a complete different object that we can want to preview on. So we can go to rounded cube. This is what I use the most. And so as you can see, I can manipulate the lighting kind of like we were doing in that preview. Right here is our kind of 2D preview. It's set to standard PBR defaults, which we will have to adjust. We can adjust that under channels here. I'll tell you right now, for Lumion, what we'd want is diffuse, normal, glossiness, and pretty much that's all we'll get out of this. So these are the three maps. If there's an ambient occlusion one, we could use that as well. There's a couple other maps that might pop up that we can make use of. But basically, that's our preview, and over here is kind of the star of everything, and these are the controls. So it defaults when you open these to 512 by 512, which is actually pretty low resolution. We could jump that up. Essentially, it's almost limitless. You could go up to 8K. It uses about 8 or 9 gigs of VRAM, so if you have a card that can handle that, you could even go up to 8K. Usually we would stop at 4K. And let's take a look at 4K. So pretty good detail level in there. The only problem with looking at it in 4K is if we start manipulating these things, it's going to get a little laggy. So let's jump it to about 1000. That looks still pretty good. Let's make the 3D preview a little bigger. And over here, there's a couple really awesome things that this will come with. Some come with more than others, as I explained. But we'll always have output size. And there's another really cool thing. It's randomized seed. If I click on this, because this is procedurally generated, like by a computer, we can randomize a lot of these things and have completely different random materials. So if you wanted to, I used this before when I had marble and I wanted to make marble flooring that didn't look like a bunch of just marble tiles right next to each other. I was able to randomize it 9 times and make a 3x3 grid of marble tiles that were completely different individually, and you get all the maps for each one. So they have some colors we can manipulate in here of the mud. Yeah, we can have some pretty interesting looking colored mud here. Different color leaves. And I'm going to go ahead and reset the values to what it was. And so look at this. We can change the water amount interactively. There's like no actual water, it's just kind of wet. And there's almost, you know, a lot of water. They set the minimum and maximum here. You can have how many, let's put it kind of in the middle here. You can change the footprint density. And so this is just giving you a feel. I could go a lot, I'll go a lot more into this on future tutorials. Probably got a lot more than I really wanted to. This is just going to be a really quick showing of what this looks like. But it really kind of leads me to my next point, which is, you know, why use substance? And I think it's becoming pretty obvious. These are a lot more powerful than just images. There's a couple, here's those presets. Dry stone pit, I think that's what it said. Dry stone pit, tundra wet, wet forest. And we could make infinite more off of one substance. I mean, how is that for value? When you download a material off another website, you get that material, and you could Photoshop and manipulate the colors a little bit. But when you get one substance, it's just the floodgates open to how many different things you can do with it. So really quickly, I'll explain now. If I want to put this in the Lumion, see, I recommend 2K right here, 2K by 2K. I've done a lot of testing with this, and I used to use a lot of 4K, and I still will. But it's very heavy on VRAM, and it actually doesn't make too big of a difference. Unless it's going to be like a floor material or something you're really going to get close up on and you want that extra detail, I would recommend 1K for just blah materials that you're going to have in there that look pretty good, 2K for your main materials, and 4K for showcase materials in a way. And if you want to go insane, you could do 8K. But let's take a look at it. I love this. So this is 2K, 4K, and if you want to go to 8K, hopefully I have enough VRAM going right now. I do have Lumion prepped and ready to show off a little bit. Takes a moment. Maybe this was a bad idea. Nope, there it is. So you can see that's a little ridiculous unless the camera is going to be this close. But I tend to like ridiculous in some things, so there's 8K. And these maps here, as you can see, the preview map is scaled, and that's the size of a leaf. So that map is huge. If I went to fit 8K resolution, all maps. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do 2K, and I'll show you how to export it. It's just a simple button up here. It says export as bitmap. It just means whatever image file we want to go at. It defaults to Targa here, which are great high quality format, but there's only so much disk space in the world, so I usually even jump down to JPEG. If it's a high enough resolution, maybe people will judge me on this, but I'll go to JPEG. If I want to keep some quality, I'll go to PNG, but these get pretty heavy, and I have a lot of them already. So let's just, for our case, switch it to JPEG here. It's set to my desktop. These are just some things that, understanding how it's going to name it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. The important thing here is the outputs. As we mentioned, Lumion wants diffuse. Base color is almost always the same. It comes to metals, and we'll go more into that later. We want normal for sure. We don't need specular. And understand this, roughness and glossiness are the exact same thing, but roughness is inverted. So what's black is white, what's white is black. It's just how the PBR, physically based material workflow, has set that up. But Lumion likes the glossiness map, I'll tell you that now. So it saved me a lot of time, or I mean, it could have saved me a lot of time if I knew that before. I had to play a lot with this. Lumion does not support quite metallic maps in the same way, and displacement map is not supported in Lumion, but we may make use of that yet. We'll have some fun later playing with that. But basically, here's our setup. You could even embed this right here, external, SB, SPR. Don't worry about that. It basically means you can load the presets again, because once you manipulate this and basically create your own unique substance and export it, and then you close this, it's gone. You probably don't remember, that the mud was set to 0.59 here on leaf density, or but if you do this, I've just learned about this recently, it'll export a little format, kind of like Lumion does, where we could reload all these values again, because I've had that happen where I've had a substance come out and I had it in Lumion. I'm like, man, I just want to increase this a little bit more, and I don't remember the values, and so I had to basically guess it again, recreate the material from scratch, I guess. Anyways, you go to export, and there they are. It's creating them right now, and it is done. And I will show you right here on my desktop. There's our diffuse, our glossiness, and normal. Now, the glossiness workflow is going to be saved for another video. It's coming very soon. How we get that in there, but it makes a huge difference on materials like this. So basically, right off the bat, we could plug these into Lumion and get what we need. And I kind of already cheated. I have this material sitting here waiting in Lumion to show off, already set up. And there's that little file that we could use to regain our values. So let's jump into Lumion and show you what substance looks like in Lumion. So here's that exact mud, although, you know, I cheated. This was done beforehand. This is my render setup that I've kind of used to really test out materials. I have lots of different materials here set on different layers, but you can kind of see part of it's reflective, part of it's not. That's our substance coming. I'm pretty sure this was 4K. And let me show. Oh no, these are so that's a metal. When I unhide these layers after I've opened this up, I wanted to show you a couple examples, but some of these are pretty heavy, and Lumion has to take a sec to load them all in because they're, like I said, they're 4K maps. Now, the reason I'm showing this off is because I have a couple instances here, and this is my little setup I've done. And I will share some of these ones I've already pre-rendered after this, because we're just kind of looking at the preview render right here. So here's a nice wood. You can see that reflective in the top, that reflection broken up in the top there from the glossiness map, and it's nice and high resolution. Here's our mud. I'll put a reflection plane on the bottom there. It makes a huge difference. Could probably make the scale a little bigger. But that's pretty much all I'm going to show off in this first live stream, just because, just for time. I've probably gone a lot more in depth than I wanted to, although it's actually gone a little faster than I want. I'd like to keep these organized because I can definitely start talking way too much. But I have a moment here. Let's see. I have a little bit of time here. I see that they have 27 people watching right now. That's going to be the end of this tutorial right now, in this little intro to Substance and Lumion. The next one I'm going to talk about is going to be the workflow of how to actually get this to look like this in Lumion. The steps you need to take, and I probably covered actually some parts of it already. I was going to go more into Substance Player. Here's a nice tile on with a little grunge on there. So the next one, we're going to go over how I get you guys to do that. I'm going to put the links into the description. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.